The Predators are back on the ice for opening night in Smashville. 26 hours from right now. Tomorrow night at 7 at Bridgestone Arena, the Predators host the Columbus Blue Jackets. Tomorrow at 4, that's 23 hours from now, we will see you on the Bridgestone Arena Plaza for the annual Player Gold Walk at 4 o'clock. Opening night in Smashville. Nothing like it. Clean slate, new season. Let's talk about it. Starting right now for the next 2 hours, it's the Nashville Predators season preview show on your exclusive radio home for Preds hockey, 1025 The Game. My name is Max Hers from Preds Radio, joined for the next 2 hours by Predators TV voice and 1025 The Game's finest, Willie Donick. Hello, Willie D.
Hello. I am excited for Hockey Eve right here. I am ready for this game. This is I don't know what this is. It's they're a big underdog, right? If you look around the league, there's not a lot of optimism from the outsiders who are picking the standings and everything like that. I didn't expect there to be, but I'm just very curious. I think this season can go a lot of different directions for the Predators. If you heard Barry Trotz on our show yesterday at this time, which he will join us every Tuesday at 5 o'clock, you could feel the optimism, especially for the young players. He also thinks that the second year for the big free agents that all kind of flopped last year will be quite a bit better. The question isn't really can they be better, because they can't slip much lower. Everything that could go wrong went wrong last year. It's how much better can they be this year? That is the question for 25-26.
Willie Donick will be here for the next 2 hours. Also joining us from D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick here on 1025 The Game. Adam Vingan is with us for the preview show tonight. His Preds preview show debut. Hi, Adam.
Does that make me 1025 The Game's second finest if Willie is the finest?
You're somewhere else on the list.
That's nice.
I have to compliment Derek Mason while I'm sitting in his very comfy chair, so D. Mace is probably ahead of you too.
By the way, do not take chair out of the studio. According D. Mace has written that in Sharpie.
He wrote on Sharpie in his office chair.
Yes.
That's how much it needs to not go anywhere. But he let me sit in it, which is so nice. We're going to have some fun over the next 2 hours. We will be taking your calls and texts, 615-737-1025, same as during any normal talk show. Texts especially are encouraged. We may not have time to take a ton of phone calls, but any Preds questions you have for the crew, we have plenty of guests lined up coming up in about 10 minutes. At 5:15, Predators head coach Andrew Brunette will join us for an interview. At 5:30, Hal Gill from Preds Radio and Preds TV will join us for an interview. Then at 6 o'clock, we will hear some of the best clips from Barry Trotz's interview here on 1025 The Game yesterday. And at 6:30, we will hear from the voice of the Predators and soon-to-be Golden Hall member Pete Weber at 6:30. We'll be on the air from 5 to 7 to start the Wednesday night hockey block here on the Predators season preview show. A whole lot to talk about. And storyline number 1, it is happening. We kind of felt it happening for a while, but today the words came out of the head coach Andrew Brunette's mouth for sure. 18-and-a-half-year-old Brady Martin, the 5th overall pick in the NHL draft this summer by the Preds, will make his NHL debut tomorrow night on opening night at Bridgestone Arena, playing top-line center in between Philip Forsberg, the leading goal scorer in franchise history, and Ryan O'Reilly, one of the most accomplished centers in the entire NHL today. Pretty incredible that he made the team. It's going to be game by game to see how it goes, how many games he'll play, whether he plays just a few, whether he gets all the way to the 9 he can play without burning the first year off his entry-level contract, or if he plays well enough to stay longer than that.
I'll admit, I did not think Brady Martin would be on this team's opening night roster when training camp began. We talked a lot about this over the summer after the Predators drafted Brady Martin with the number 5 overall pick. Rarely in recent history do number 5 overall picks stick with their teams for significant amounts of time in the year that they're drafted. Now, as Max, you just said, the Predators are going to take it game by game. They can play him up to 9 games before deciding to either send him back to junior or to burn a year off of his entry-level contract. So just because he's on the opening night roster and making his NHL debut tomorrow night does not mean he is here for the entire season. But the fact that he is going to be playing tomorrow night is not something I would have predicted when training camp began. By the way, Brady Martin will be the second youngest Predators player at the time of his NHL debut. Scott Hartnell, roughly 25 years ago, was the youngest. Brady Martin now number 2 on that list.
I'd say those guys actually have pretty similar personalities. I think they'd be friends.
Max, you've been around him some. What is his personality like? We heard all about on draft night that, he grew up on a farm. He famously stayed on the farm and did his normal farming routine instead of going to the draft.
Joran.
But now that he's been around, what have you seen from him?
I think he is almost a perfect balance, especially at his age, between serious about the game and having his priorities straight, and hockey comes first, with also being fun-loving and not being afraid to show his personality around. First, we saw it in the rookie camp with his junior teammate Andrew Gibson, who's going to start the season in Milwaukee, one of the Preds' top defenseman prospects. Those guys were having the time of their lives at rookie camp. They were letting their personalities shine. They were leading the way. They were vocal. They were fun. They were loud. And it was interesting to see, is Brady Martin still going to be able to make some noise when he's got guys 15, 17 years older than him in the locker room? And I think the fact that he spent a couple of nights in Philip Forsberg's house, staying with him before training camp started, I think that gave him the final vote of confidence he needed. It's okay to be myself. It's okay to be out of my shell. And you know what? Those things are going to help him make the team. And I think they have.
I thought it was apparent, and I didn't get this verified by anybody, just my observation, the way they were using him, what role they were using him in, and how he looked, that it was quickly apparent, especially with Evangelista holding out, and then eventually Matthew Wood got hurt, that it was clear that they were going to at least keep him around for the 9-game area. But I think the conversation is now advanced past that, and we are quickly moving on to what happens after he plays 9 games. And so the next step would be, does he play well enough that they are going to want to keep him in there every night? Like, is he one of their 12 best? Because we've seen players at young ages, they can flash for a couple games, but I wonder how they're going to try to buy their time and space out before they have to make a very difficult decision. It'd be a lot easier if you could just swing them up and down to Milwaukee throughout the year, but they can't do that. So this is a very important decision that Barry Trotz is going to carefully make, and we'll get Andrew Burnett's perspective on it here soon.
Yeah, and I'll push back on you, Willie. I don't think I'm there yet. I'm not thinking anything beyond 9 right now.
Yeah.
I don't think 9 is a guarantee.
And that's what I think would have been the overwhelming probability before the season started, right? Best case, he stays around for 9 games, right? But so you think that that's very likely going to happen still?
I think it's, yeah. I think it's definitely at least 50% chance that he gets to 9. But I think it really is game by game. Yeah.
You're saying, so you're saying they could drop, they could send him back
I am
before he
nowhere
plays
near
9.
thinking about a double-digit number yet.
Okay.
I think it largely depends on how the Predators start the season. The Predators have gotten off to some rough starts over the past couple of years. If the Predators get off to another rough start this season, my gut tells me that the Predators will send Brady Martin back to junior. If this team gets off to a good start and Brady Martin is contributing, then I think they consider keeping him around. The question is, how do you quantify contributing, right? Is it simply by points? Is it something that he does that isn't quantified by points? But I think it largely depends on how this team starts. If they start off well and he's playing a role in that, I know that sounds simplistic, but I do think the first couple of weeks will ultimately tell us how long he's around.
I don't think that's simplistic at all, Adam. I think.
Well, thank you, Max.
I was going to say the exact calculus. It's too simple to be calculus. It's just
basic
addition,
math,
arithmetic. Yeah. No, I really think that's it. And I think there's a shot he stays, but I think it does depend on team performance in addition to his personal performance as well.
The start of the season is more important than your normal. I mean, every game's important, right? But the start of this season is particularly important to this team based on what happened last year. They didn't like how training camp went last year, and obviously it played out into the regular season starting 0-5. So the urgency has to be there, and so that's going to be in this formula and how Brady Martin is used. So can Brady Martin help them get off to a good start? It's not just, hey, let's take a look at the kid. You can't afford to do that. You're looking to win.
Training camp has been good, and Brady Martin's been part of the reason why. We will take a break, come back, talk to Predators head coach Andrew Brunette before opening night tomorrow night in Smashville. 2-game homestand to start the season. Tomorrow night at 7 against the Blue Jackets. Then Saturday night at 7 against the recently renamed Utah Mammoth to start the year. We'll be back with more after this. This is the Predators season preview show. Andrew Brunette joins us next here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back to the Predators season preview show here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. We are proud to be your radio home for Preds hockey. Opening night tomorrow night against the Columbus Blue Jackets at Bridgestone Arena. My name is Max Hers, alongside Willie Donick and Adam Vingan, and we are joined now by Predators head coach Andrew Brunette here on the show. Bruno, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, guys. Yeah, great to be on.
We will get you in here before the Blue Jays try to close out the Yankees here in about 45 minutes. We know you've got your Treya Savage jersey on, or maybe even your Willie Donick medicine hat Blue Jays jersey on and ready to go.
That's hard to find. If he's got that, he was at some silent auction that I don't know about.
Emphasis on silent on that one for sure.
Yeah.
It wasn't. That was the item that wasn't getting anybody bidding, probably. So it would have been out of charity. They probably paid Bruno to take it.
That's right.
Hey, he'd rep it proudly. All right, Bruno, let's talk some puck. Training camp seems like it's gone to your satisfaction. It's been fun to watch. The players have been upbeat. Everybody seems like they have a pretty fresh mindset, a clear mind, and ready to go. As you've worked with that, what are some of the things that you've installed or system changes with the team this year that you hope change the results for the Preds this season?
Yeah, I think one, before you get into a little bit of the tweaks, the competitiveness of camp, I think, is the one thing that stuck out. Obviously, the influx of youth, I thought, brought a lot of energy. Having a long summer seems to revitalize a lot of our players that were here last year. So it's been a great vibe. But I really, enjoyed the competition and getting to see some of our younger players and what they bring. As for, some tweaks in the system, a little bit of a part of it's a mindset. I don't think it matters what system you play. If you're not in the right mindset, it's not going to work. If you're not committed to it, it's not going to work. So I think the mindset for me was really important coming in. Obviously, lots of discussions with the players, especially the veteran leadership group of where we want to go, where we, at the end of the year, we talked about a little bit where we failed and how can we improve and where do we want to go. So I think that was the first thing, just the mindset of moving forward and how we're going to move forward. As for system changes, we tweaked a few things in our defensive zone. We tweaked a few things kind of up ice a little bit. Those are the two things that really stuck out. But again, to me, it's nothing drastic or completely crazy. A little bit more emphasis of letting Juice see the puck. I think we failed them a little bit in that area, both mindset-wise and maybe a little bit systematically, where we had some issues clearing the front of the net for them or clearing the porch for them. Partly was due to, how many defensemen we went through and the size. So I think this year we added some size, which hopefully allow us to clean the porch a little better. But again, to me, I keep repeating it, but it doesn't really matter what system you play or what changes you make. It has to be the mindset that's there and the commitment to that mindset.
Andrew Brunette is with us, head coach for the Nashville Predators. And Andrew, after the season was over, we talked to Barry Trotz about this yesterday. He really praised you for sort of jumping out, taking the initiative of how to go through last year, as you just kind of referred to, try to fix some things, make some things better. Take us through the process of how you, behind the scenes, prepared for this training camp, because it really sounds like the energy is good and the players have responded to the adjustments.
Yeah, I think it's a collaboration. I think there's some things that the players wanted me to hear, and there's some things I wanted them to hear. And I think, again, we were growing our relationship. For a chunk of them, this is our third year together, and for a couple of the other older guys, it's our second year, and we're still getting to know each other and trying to work together to get to our ultimate goal. But I think it started at the end of the year. Sat with a leadership group. Again, like I said, broke down or were open conversations of what they thought and what I thought, and we tried to find some middle ground. And there was the non-negotiables and the things that I strictly believe in, and there's other things that I was willing to change and tweak together. And again, if we don't have buy-in, it doesn't matter what we tweak. So I think they had some ownership of it. I have ownership of it, and I think that brought the energy up. And we kind of stayed in touch all summer, making sure we understood each other and that we had a clear vision of what we wanted to accomplish and how we wanted to get there. And, in September, we sat down again after a few conversations in the summer and just made sure this is where we're at. So I think we're all together. We're connected. We're unified on how we believe we need to play. We have a game plan. Now we're just putting it in action. And I thought camp, for the most part, we hit, 2 or 3 of those fundamental goals we were trying to achieve and how we wanted to play. And, there's still some things that we got to improve on, but I see the improvement every day and the willingness to work on those improvements. If it's systematically, if it's mindset of the value of the puck, all those things, I think, were a collaboration and a partnership with the players, also setting, I guess, non-negotiables or goals that we need to attain.
Andrew, you confirmed earlier today that Brady Martin will make his NHL debut tomorrow at the fresh young age of 18 years old. I see that you have Martin centering Philip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly. Why Martin down the middle versus O'Reilly? And how do you intend to deploy that line, specifically Martin and O'Reilly? Because, of course, O'Reilly has a ton of experience down the middle.
Yeah, I think going right to start of the camp, I thought, Marty and Phil had really good chemistry. Obviously, Woody had a tremendous start to his camp, and he got hurt. And then I just thought with O'Reilly's ability, he's played some wing in his career. Obviously, he's a centerman, but just being able to protect Brady a little bit in either the faceoffs or defensive zone, I think that's crucial as for a young player, especially getting his feet wet. And obviously, I think they feed off each other really well down low in the offensive zone. I think that's a strength of the game, where they're really good at supporting each other. They're close together. They think very similarly down there. And you could see the little bit of chemistry in the games we had. And I think with, Fedor Svechkov playing the way he has the latter part of camp, I think it's allowed us to experiment with this. And let's just see with Brady if he can handle the workload going forward. So far, he's stepped up to every task. And tomorrow, where we ramp up about 20% more than exhibition for all of us that have been around this game, it's going to, it's be a big challenge for him. And like I said, he's rose to the occasion every time, and I expect him to do it again. And I don't think having Ryan O'Reilly beside you, really to lean on, to listen to watch, to help, it'll be instrumental in Brady's success this year if he's able to, keep his level that he's at right now.
Predators coach Andrew Brunette is our guest here on the season preview show on 102.5 The Game. So great to have Roman Josi back, doing Josi things, getting the treatment he needs after his POTS diagnosis. What's it been like for you, Bruno, watching him this camp get back on the horse?
Well, I think, we never know where it was going to go at the end of last year. And for our whole coaching staff to see him back, and not just back, but refreshed, excited, I think feeling very comfortable that he's come up with the solution, that some of the things that bothered him. And I think he feels confident with that. And it showed on the ice right from the start. His fitness is always off the charts, but I just think the jump he had, that even in practice where he looks like Yos again. And last year, obviously he dealt with it a little bit before he had to shut it down. And I think it was bothering him. And this year I see a free Roman that he's not thinking, he's just playing. And when he's doing that, he's as good as it gets in the game.
We're talking to Andrew Brunette. And Andrew, one theme that we're hearing, and you just mentioned the dynamic between a Brady Martin and a Ryan O'Reilly. I've noticed Svechkov playing with Stamkos a lot. You've got Willsby and Josi playing together some. You've got these young, youthful, enthusiastic talents who are just scratching the surface, and then you've got these veterans that have been through a lot and won a lot over the course of their career. What's that dynamic been like to watch?
Well, I think it goes back to a little bit of the mindset of the collaboration and the open conversations with our veterans, that this is where we're at right now. And for us to move forward, we're going to need our youth to grow. And that's hard at different times, but our leadership group's been great. They've accepted the challenge with open arms. And I think it's proven all through camp and all those situations you just talked to, they've been able to help whoever they're playing. And, talked about Phil quite a bit, how Phil's handled, even Brady and Matthew Wood, bringing Brady into his house and talking to him right from the first day of exhibition game. And you kind of take that for granted. But I think being a player at one point, being a young player, to have a guy like Phil spend time with you, talk to you, have patience with you, it just goes a long, long way in your development. And I think it accelerates it. And hey, we're going to need these kids, and I'm not even, there's even the Zach LaRue's and the Kemis and the Weisblatts. They're all real close too. And they're going to be parts of this team this year. So we're going to need all hands on deck. But again, it goes back to the mindset and the buy-in of our older players, that they're willing to take on this leadership role, take on these young kids, because they understand we're going to need them and their youth and energy throughout the season, especially being a shorter, where the Olympic break kind of season is going to be very condensed. So it speaks to the relationship that we've built over the summer and their understanding and buy-in that we're going to have to do this, and they're all in.
You've got Luke Evangelista now back with the team. He's got the new contract. I don't know if there's a change in his immigration visa status. I know that's been up in the air, but what's the process been like to try to get him acclimated and catch up?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you're jumping on a speeding train, especially when you're trying to catch up to speeding train, especially as tomorrow rolls around. But Luke's played enough games, he'll be fine. We're just trying to get him in practice used to the pace. I think he was practicing with the London Knights and, a little bit of junior hockey and this is just a little bit of a different pace, a little bit different animal when it comes to puck battles and stick strength. And the one thing he has going for him is in outstanding physical shape. I mean, I think he scored the highest in our camp and some of the bike things we were doing, and he looks great on the ice. So he looks as good as I've seen him this part of the year. I think he's historically been a slower starter. To me, he's skating really good. He's really, amped up the play, and hopefully we get this visa thing figured out here the next couple of days.
Bruno, thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you out there in Smashville tomorrow night for opening night.
All right, great, guys. Thanks for having me. See you tomorrow.
That's Predators head coach Andrew Brunette joining us to get things started on the Predators season preview show tonight.
Let's hope that the Jays take care of business tonight so he's not distracted for the Game 5. He doesn't want to have to watch the scoreboard tomorrow.
Hey, it's an off day either way tomorrow. Everything lines up perfectly.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even think about it. So Game 5 would be Friday? Oh,
right?
It's all lined up either way then. My bad.
I was going to suggest one of the iPads on the bench. He could turn to the Jays
Do they
game.
have to?
But I guess he doesn't have to now.
It's all good. He's hoping the Jays take care of it tonight.
They will play in half an hour. The Blue Jays and Yankees will, and I believe that game is going to be on 94.9 The Fan. Is that correct?
That sounds right.
I'm not sure, but I think it might be. All right. We will talk to Hal Gill coming up next, bringing in our big defenseman from Preds Radio and Preds TV here on the Predators season preview show. Max Scherz, Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, and you here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back to the Predators season preview show here on ESPN 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. My name is Max Hers from Preds Radio, along with Willie Donick from Preds TV and D-Mays Finken and Donick, with Adam Vingan from D-Mays Finken and Donick. Just had Predators head coach Andrew Brunette on the show. What'd you think of what we heard, Willie?
I think the big theme is partnership and having the players take ownership. Those that follow the Titans know that there was a big story that, and if you listen to our show on DVD, we talked about a story that Albert Breer had recently, that Brian Callahan had a meeting with his veteran group, and he had them air grievances. He had them talk about what they want to see better. And that was sort of the idea. He wanted to make sure there was a buy-in and everybody took accountability. It sounds like to me, and Adam, let's see how many similarities did you hear from Andrew Brunette over the summer, where he said he had talks with the veterans throughout the summer. He wanted buy-in, he wanted ownership, and it sounds like Andrew Brunette was willing to adjust how they played, but he basically said, look, if you want to play this way, I need a full buy-in of what we're looking for.
Time now to go to our phone line.
I will answer that question, but first let's get to Hal Gill.
To talk to the man who was just on this radio station 1 hour ago for silly underdog picks, selected the BC Eagles to beat Clemson, and now we get to welcome Hal Gill back to talk about his sport of choice as we ship it back up to Boston. Hi, Skillsy.
But that song just follows massholes around everywhere. And,
It is definitely the theme of the massholes.
And to be clear, for those of you listening, he said masshole with an M.
Massachusetts
clear.
born, Massachusetts bred. Hey, I'm proud of it. And we hold that title with a ton of respect.
And Hal Gill is first on the list for that one. All right, Skillsy, let's talk some puck. Preseason has come and gone. What have you thought of what the Preds have shown?
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I think there's a lot of great storylines. We're talking about what are we going to talk on the air and on TV and radio, and there's so many things to talk about. First of all, I think the most important thing that maybe gets skipped over by a lot of other things is Roman Josi is back and he's healthy, and I feel like he looks just as good as ever, which is a huge fresh of breath air for a lot of fans that were looking at it going, whoa, what do we do? What does this team do without Roman Josi? So that checks one box. I think you look at the veterans, and I think they have a chip on their shoulder. They have something to prove. I think you look at training camp and how they played in preseason games and the way they acted. I think there's a lot of guys like O'Reilly, Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, like these guys are digging in. I feel like they were kind of embarrassed by last year, and I think probably rightfully so. They should have been embarrassed, but they have something to prove. And then they got a bunch of young guys that are kind of nipping at it. And I'm we looked at Joachim Kemmel, who we're saying, hey, who's going to step up and take this? And what a statement he made in the last preseason game, running Svechnikov and then scoring a big goal in overtime. Like that excites me. Like, I love that. I like watching Ozzy Weisblatt go out there and stir it up and cross-check the guy and get in the mix. I like watching guys like Wood, go out and showcase his skills, that he's got talent and he deserves to be here. And then the biggest story, I think, that is Brady Martin, look like Forsberg and O'Reilly, and what an awesome experience for him. And I'm excited to see what he can do with it. He's still young. He's going to make mistakes, but I think he's got a huge upside, and we're going to see what it's all about tomorrow night. So, all in, and then you add in the coaches, with Luke Richardson joining, I feel like he's got a pulse for the team now, and he's ready to give his knowledge, and Brunette making some tweaks and becoming a better coach every day. I'm hoping this all comes together and gives us a great season. I'm incredibly optimistic.
Hal, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the Carolina Hurricanes play a unique defensive system. That's where Brady Shea came from. So we were expecting an adjustment when Shea left Carolina and joined the Predators. And it looked like he struggled to adjust over the course of the season. I think Brady Shea's struggles maybe didn't get the attention that they should have just because of Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault. But what did you see from Shea last year? How optimistic are you that he is fully integrated into what Brunette wants to do? I also want to ask you about that pair with Shea and Nick Perbix. That pair intrigues me. What do you like about the makeup of that pair?
Yeah, I think basically what we have to do is break down the defensive structure. You know, Carolina is man to man, and they're up ice man to man. Like, so you know, Brady Shea was up on a guy in the neutral zone, and that's his guy for the most part. You know, if there's a switch, if something happens, you adjust, but the majority of the time you're on a guy, you take away his time and space, you try to get a pin, and then you pick up the puck and you go. And it's a suffocating game, but if you get beat, there's no layers of protection. And so you don't have a center supporting you. You don't have the weak side D cheating down and shrinking the zone. And so you don't really have a safeguard if you do get beat. And sometimes when you're playing the best teams, you're going to get beat. The best players in the NHL are going to beat players, and that's where the breakdowns happen. So you switch to a zone where I think the Preds were last year, was kind of a fronting zone where they were trying to be quick onto the offensive, and so cheating on it and kind of shrinking the zone with the intention of pushing and trying to get out of the zone and trying to create fast breaks, and at times cheating on it, and having the forwards cheat. And when you have a breakdown with that, as quick as you can go to offense, you can very quickly turn into a grade A scoring chance against, or a 2-on-1 against. And so I think what they've done now is simplified. It was awesome listening to Perbix and Haig talk last night on Smashville Live with Max. They talked about it like it's a zone. You have the ability to be aggressive within that zone, but then you retreat back and you can come back and you can box out and you can hold body position. You're not cheating to try to create offense. You're staying on your guy in that zone. So it's a little less running around. Now that means maybe a little bit more work for the centerman because he's got to support defensively and he's not as quick to go on the offense. But I think if they figure this out and they get quick stops in a zone mentality, they're going to get those fast breaks and they're going to be there. And so I think Brady Shea has gone through the adjustment of going from Carolina to what Bruno's system was last year. And now he's taken it to a kind of a tweaked system of Bruno's system now. And so I'm excited to see how he goes. I think he's got another level of comfort. And don't forget, he moved and, there's a lot that went into last year. So I think this year, coming off the World Championships and feeling good about the end of the season, having a summer to kind of come back and be ready to go, I'm hoping we see Brady Shea that we know is one of the best defensemen, two-way defensemen in the game. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that final adjustment and that final tweak.
Hal Gill is with us. So, Hal, on DVD, we always have Derek Mason as the wide receiver translator. A lot of what you just said, I was fascinated. I listened last night to you and Max talk to the two Nicks, right? Nick Perbix, Nick Haig. So if you put all that, as you explained in there, I think everybody concluded last year defensively that was a big problem. We know they didn't score enough goals. That was its own problem. But defensively is probably arguably a little easier to fix or has to get better. How much different do you think it will look? How much different does it look to you how they are defending this year in the training camp compared to last year?
I think, and don't forget, everyone, kind of looking at, hey, the defensive structure fell apart. It was really good the year before. Like, they started to click and they had some success with Bruno's system, and it really started to come together, and they were moving into the neutral zone quicker than ever. They were transitioning, they get a stop and they were going. And I think that's when you notice that Bruno's system was working, it was going. The problem is it wasn't clean enough. And you have to be really clean to run that system. This, I don't think they're going to have to be as clean. I think they can make mistakes and have the safeguard. They're going to have layers to protect the front of the net. And I think ultimately what this system is going to do, I think you're going to see Juice seeing a lot more pucks. And I think that's important for a guy who's not just a shot blocker back there. He's a smaller guy. He's quick. If he sees it, he's going to stop it. But there's a lot of times last year where he didn't see the puck. There's traffic in front. I think you're going to see more box outs, and you're going to see more, hey, okay, if you keep it on the perimeter and finally you get a shot on net, Juice is going to be able to stop it. And so I think you're going to see, I'm hoping you're going to see with the Preds a lot more of a vision, a sight line on pucks for Juice. And so he's going to have an easier time making those saves, and there won't be those breakdowns where they're cheating. I think it's just a little change in mindset as well, where you're a little more confident in take care of the defensive zone and worry about offense when you get to it. Just make sure you defend well in the defensive zone and be creative in the offensive zone. Be creative through the neutral zone. Make your plays there, but don't rush to get to that. Take care of your defensive end, and then you can take care of the game from there. And I think that's pretty much the mindset, and the systematic change is going to be more of that.
Hal, before we let you go, I don't know if you know this about me or not, but I'm a nerd. Okay. And
no,
right, real, right, right.
No way.
So I will be honest with
What a
you.
thought.
Right. I will be honest with you, Hal. When the Predators traded for Nick Hague and signed him to the contract that they did, I got a little queasy because I rely on analytics for these sorts of things. And Nick Hague, and you can throw Nick Perbix in there as well. They're not what we would call analytics darlings. Nick Hague is a big guy. Nick Perbix is a big guy. You're a big guy. I want your opinion on this. I want you to quantify the value of Hague and Perbix. And I know that Hague isn't going to be playing for at least the next month, but I want you to quantify the value of Hague and Perbix in helping the Predators defensively. That isn't just me looking at numbers on a spreadsheet.
I think, first of all, I appreciate analytics, and I understand how they work, but there's also something to be said for, I'm a player going down. I'm not going to try to beat this monster that's 6'6" and is going to cross-check me and is going to beat me up and take me to the boards. They're not even going to try. And I think there's something to be said for that. I'm going to go around. I'm not going to try to shoot through this guy. He's too big. And so a lot of the analytics, I think, don't even happen because, just their presence. I always said, that was a Brent Burns effect. You're going down and you see this toothless guy with a huge beard and he's massive. There's no analytics for, oh, God, that guy's a monster. And so I think there's something to be said for that. But if you look at and we'll break it down to Perbix, I think he plays a simple game. He's good positionally. He's got a good stick. And I think he simplifies the game for everyone around him. And so I don't know how much the analytics can drive. How does a centerman feel playing with him? How does a winger feel playing with him? If they go back for a puck, how predictable is that play going to be? And a lot of that, I think, is what Perbix does really well is he stays in his lane. He's not going to wander too much. He's going to keep it simple. He's playing with Brady Shea, who I think complements that well, where, Brady can feel a little bit more free to move and know that Perbix will back him up. And I think they have a good little bit of good mojo going right now where they can predict what each other is going to do. And that's only in a short period of time that I've been watching them. So I think that's good about Perbix. The big thing I watch with Hague is he's a big body. He's got a great reach. He uses his size extremely well. He can be physical and he gets box outs in front of the net. The big thing, what I really like is the way he distributes the puck and the way he holds the puck. And he doesn't in the games we saw, he didn't just throw it over to Yost. although that's an easy play, anytime you can do that, it's a one-man breakout, right? You give it to Yost and the puck's going to get out. But what I really liked is he held on to the puck. He took the extra second. And what I couldn't do and what he does really well, and the reason why I think he makes the money he does is because he can pull it and change the angle and hit the weak side winger or hit the strong side winger, bump it to the center. He makes that little play. Roman Josi sees that. Now Roman Josi is going with the forwards, and now you have kind of a four-man attack that I think you're going to see a lot of what Haig does is create that. And he might be the one breakout pass that you wouldn't notice, but there's going to be more of a I think you're going to see more 4-on-3s and with Roman Josi joining the rush because a winger gets it, bumps it to the center. Now they're attacking and Roman Josi's up in the play. And I think you're going to see that, which we talked about for years, is the Preds want Roman Josi to distribute the puck, get it up, and then join the rush and not lead it all the time. I think with Nick Haig, I think he's going to do that just because he's got the confidence and the skill to make those little plays. And I think that is kind of, you don't see it too much in bigger guys like that because guys like me, I want to get rid of the puck. I want to move it quick. And I think Haig has that extra little touch on his pass and a little talent and a little more patience, and he makes those plays. And so defensively, he's sound and he does all those things well, but that little bit that gets Roman Josi up into the rush is going to be a game changer.
Great stuff, Skillsy. Looking forward to more conversations like this all season long.
Yeah. No, I'm hoping we get a good run. I mean, we got 2 games at home. Hey, can you guys talk about I'll get off the phone, but I want you guys to talk about how exciting it is. Last year, remember, there was a long homestand, and the guys didn't get out on the road. I think this is a great schedule. We're going to get 2 games at home. The boys are going to go through Eastern Canada. They're going to bond. They're going to go to Montreal. They're going to go to Toronto. They're going to have to battle wins out on the road. And for some of the new guys, it's going to be they're roping and riding on the road. And I think that's going to be a good team bonding thing. And I think it's going to be a big difference from what we saw last year.
Hal Gill, bonding coordinator on the road. I love it. This is it.
You got that right, Willie.
Skillsy, we will see you in Smashville tomorrow. Thanks again.
Looking forward to it. Cheers, boys.
Hal Gill, who we're lucky to have on Preds Radio and Preds TV, breaking down the Preds decor and so much more. We'll be back after this on the Predators season preview show on ESPN 102.5 The Game. This is the Predators season preview show on ESPN 1025 The Game. My name is Max Hers, along with Willie Donick and Adam Vingan. And we have some text questions talking Preds hockey on our phone line, presented by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Matthew from Jolton wants to know who gets the edge between Joakim Kemmel and Luke Evangelista for the second line. So let's explain what's going on with Evangelista, who just signed last weekend his 2-year, $6 million contract after what could be described as tense negotiations between his representation and the Predators, but the contract is done, but he is awaiting immigration. So why don't we fill in Matthew and others on what's happening with Evangelista and what that can mean for the lineup tomorrow?
Yeah, I think if he immediately had immigration settled, I think it would have been an interesting thing to see based on how Kemmel played, especially in that last game. He had about as good a stretch as you can have in an overtime, where he had this amazing hit that made its rounds across the league, draws a penalty, and then scores with his best weapon, which is one-timer. So that was a great exclamation point.
That was it. That was Joakim Kimmel's roster-making moment.
Yes, no doubt about it. And so if there were no immigration, then I think if it was between those two, and it wasn't necessarily, right, because you could put somebody on a fourth line, and maybe Ozzy Weisblatt rotates off, but Weisblatt has had a good camp as well. That would be a discussion. But this visa thing is a real thing. It's different this year than it has been before. It's taking longer. I mean, you would think a guy that's been with the Predators and is from Canada, it wouldn't take this long. But you heard Andrew Burnett just a few minutes ago say that he's not sure it will be settled by tomorrow. He said the next couple of days is what he said. So you're sort of at the mercy of the people that do this to grant you the clearance to play. I think Evangelista, it was encouraging for me, Max, to hear that Andrew Burnett said he came in tremendous shape, because now it's just acclimating to the speed of the game.
Well, Evangelista said that he felt he had the best training summer of his life at any level of hockey, working on his speed, his endurance, his conditioning. He changed a lot of things up. He got a new skills coach. He worked out in a new gym. He had a new fitness routine. He changed his nutrition up in a lot of ways, Evangelista said as well. So I think he knew last year was not good enough, and a lot of things had to change, and he's playing a little bit from behind here. And I think assuming he does not get the clearance to play that he needs from immigration and the visa requirements in the next 24 hours, Joakim Kemmel gets first serve here. And he had that incredible moment in preseason, and that's a moment that gets you a spot in the opening night lineup. And maybe Evangelista gets his visa the next day, and it's only one game. But I think Kemmel gets the first shot at it. He's been here the whole time. And I think with that roster-making moment on Saturday at Bridgestone Arena in the preseason finale, I think he deserves it.
And I would say, Adam, that Evangelista is still considered a young player. He's 23, but he seems a lot older than the Kemmels and the Woods, because a couple years, he's been through the 82-game grind 2 straight years. Kemmel has not. So I think that's a big theme of this season. What do they get from the 19, well, I guess we include Brady Martin, 18 to 21-year-old age group, right? Because there's not a lot of guys on this team that are age 23 through 28.
That's a good question, Willie Donick, and that is a question that we will address coming up next, because we had Barry Trotz on the program yesterday, and he talked about the youth on the roster. So we will hear what Barry Trotz had to say, and we will continue this conversation. I'm stealing Max's job for a moment, but we will continue that conversation coming up next. Max Hers, Willie Donick, Adam Vingan for the Predators official season preview show here on 1025 The Game. Welcome back to the Predators official season preview show. Adam Bingen alongside Max Hers and Willie Donick. Pete Weber will join the program in roughly 30 minutes. We had some great conversations with Andrew Brunette and Hal Gill in the first hour. But let's turn our attention toward the younger group, the younger section of this Predators roster, if you will. I crunched some numbers during the break. The Predators have 4 of their own first-round picks on the opening day roster, if you include Matthew Wood, who was injured. Brady Martin, Matthew Wood, Joachim Kemmel, Fedor Svechkov. The Predators have 7 players, 25 or under, who are projected to be in the lineup tomorrow night against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Spencer Stastny, Adam Wilsby, Justin Barron, Ozzy Weisblatt, Fedor Svechkov, Joachim Kemmel, or Luke Evangelista, we'll see, and Brady Martin, who is the youngest of the group at 18 years old. And yesterday, Willie, Derek, and I had Barry Trotz on DVD for our first weekly interview with the Predators GM, and he used some football terminology. We all love football around here, right? He used some football terminology to describe where he thought the youth of the roster is. Here is what Barry Trotz had to say.
We've got a lot of really talented young players, and I know you like your football like we all do. We have a lot of guys in the red zone right now in our organization with young players. Now, being in the red zone, you know how that works. You're either you get stalled out, you're taking a field goal, or you're getting a touchdown, and you're pushing it through. So that's where all these guys are. They're all in the red zone, in which a little bit of luck, a lot of work, and some confidence and some good team play. Yeah, some guys are going to get to the next level here, and that's what we're looking for.
That was Barry Trotz yesterday on DVD. And guys, during the break, I looked back at the opening night lineup 1 year ago for the Nashville Predators against the Dallas Stars. It is a veteran-laden lineup, and there is so much turnover between last season's season opener and this season's season opener. Let me just list to you the players who started for the Predators in Game 1 last season who are no longer members of the organization. Gus Nyquist, Tommy Novak, Philip Tomasino, Colton Sissons, Mark Jankowski, Dante Fabro, Jeremy Lauzon, Alex Carrier, Luke Shen, and Scott Wedgwood. All of them.
How many is
gone. Nyquist, let's see. Nyquist, Novak, Tomasino, Sissons, Jankowski, Fabro, Lauzon, Carrier, Shen, and Wedgwood. 10.
10. Over half the skaters.
And I think
no, exactly half of the players, right?
Yes.
Over half of the skaters. Well, no, exactly half the skaters.
You're asking me to do too much math, Willie. But
it's a bridge too far.
Yes. I look at the youth of this team, and I think when I'm looking at what I think is the most important aspect of this season, I know the Predators are going to try to get back into the playoff mix. They have a lot of ground to make up. They missed the playoffs last season by 28 points. But to me, it's about, to use the terms that Barry Trotz used, getting as many of those young players across the goal line for a touchdown. This team desperately needs young game breakers. And we'll see how many of those younger 25 and under players I listed become game breakers. Now, there are others, not with the organization, not with the big club right now, playing in other leagues and still developing. But to me, Max, the number one goal for me this season is to get as many of those young players over that proverbial goal line as you can.
Yeah, you need to find out who's for real and who deserves to be here, who deserves to stay here, and who's going to be here 10 more years, 15 more years. And not everybody's going to be able to prove that this year. At age 18 for Brady Martin, at age 21 for Joachim Kemmel, at age 22 for Fedor Svechkov. But for someone like Svechkov, he told me today in an interview that you'll hear on the pregame show tomorrow as one of 7 players who will have his first NHL opening night tomorrow. He said it's time for him to start paying his bills. That's what Fedor Svechkov says. He knows he's got a big opportunity with Steven Stamkos. In the glimpses we've had of those guys together, they've made some magic. The overtime goal for Stamkos last year from Svechkov really stands out in my mind as a glimpse into what those guys could do together. But all these guys are getting big opportunities. Brady Martin just being in the NHL is a big opportunity, but he's going to be on the top line to make his NHL debut with two big names. Fedor Svechkov is the second line center. He's going to play with Steven Stamkos. Ozzy Weisblatt is going to get consistent playing time, which even though he played in 5 NHL games last year, he didn't have. Same for Kimmel, who played just 2 games. He's going to play in the top 6 to start the season, it looks like. Then on the back end, Adam Wilsby is healthy. He's going to play with Roman Josi. And the third pair is 2 of those 25 and under guys. I think guys with some upside who look fun together in Spencer Stastny and Justin Barron. So everybody's got their shot.
Willie, before you respond, may I make a request of the Predators game ops department, if any of you are listening, based on what Max just said? Was it Svechkov who said he's got to pay the bills? I would like to suggest that I know we love Tim McGraw around here, but Destiny's Child, Bills for Svechkov.
No, we're not changing the goal song.
Well, maybe not for the goal song, but you could still work that in, right? If he gets a big hit or a nice
their players
pass,
to choose the goal
or just have a little feature, like a little package of Svechkov highlights. You could have Bills.
Okay. Well,
There's potential here.
I'll settle for that.
Okay.
I like Big Bill Donick better.
I would say
Nobody calls him that.
Barry Trotz has his everything is riding his plan all along, which he has said is for this group of 18 to 21-year-olds. Now, he mentioned on our interview yesterday with him, we just played a clip of it. You know, he's got 11 first-round picks scattered around the globe. Some are here in Nashville. Quite a few will be in Milwaukee. Milwaukee's going to be a very young team. And then there's guys that are still playing in Europe somewhere that have not come over yet, like Igor Surin a couple years ago. They really like where he could be in a couple years, but he's playing in the KHL. So I don't know how many of the 11 he has already in the red zone. Maybe some of them are on the 35. They like them all. But, Max, they're not all going to hit it big this year. I'm worried, though. I'm not worried. I'm wondering this year, how much impact, how much production can they get from that group collectively? Because for this team to be a lot better, for this to work this year, they need something from some of these guys, even if it's just like 2 or 3 weeks of, hey, this guy just gave him a lift for a couple weeks, or a guy later in the season who starts the year in Milwaukee. Maybe it's a guy like Tanner Molendijk. I don't know. I'm just throwing out an example. Or Matthew Wood, who got hurt, can give them a good, young pair of legs that energizes them in the middle of the winter kind of thing.
Right. And the spots that were up for grabs and the spots that are currently being filled by these younger players and the guys who are recent NHL WTs, they are the premium spots. They are the spots where you can produce. If Philip Forsberg is at his best this year and in training camp, he's looked pretty good. He's up to his old tricks. And if Brady Martin can distribute to Forsberg and make the right moves, then he's got a chance to pick up a lot of points in a short amount of time.
So there's the, what do they give them this year? And I'm not, there's guys that I'm not going to panic if they don't do a whole lot this year. But in the next 2, 3, 4 years, that's where you need to see it from a lot of these guys for the Predators to be able to bridge this gap between, as Adam just kind of laid out the roster, you've got a lot of very young guys, and you've got a lot of guys in their 30s, and in a lot of cases, mid-30s, that by the time these guys really hit their stride, those guys are either going to be gone or past their prime to where the young guys have to carry the roster. So they're in this interesting vortex, right? They don't want to break it all the way down and go through the 7 to 10 year rebuild that we're seeing is realistically the amount of time you've got to spend. If you're going to do a rebuild like the Sharks, the Blackhawks, we did the documentation of this, Adam. It takes 7 to 10 years to do that. I don't
was
think
the average 8.5 years.
I think the average was 8.5.
Or if you're the Sabres, it just never ends.
which is exactly what you
have
don't
to do
want
it
to
right.
happen.
Yeah, that would be the worst case where you rebuild and the guys you pick with the high picks never gel and give you anything. Ray Ferraro on his podcast the other day was just talking about too, with the teams like Vegas and Colorado and Dallas, the teams in the window. You've got a 7 to 10 year window with that group, and those teams are depleting their farm systems. They don't have a lot of guys coming up through because they're trading those assets to continue to keep the window open. So the Predators are in between and trying to, as best they can, thread that needle. It's an interesting way that they've gone about it.
We'll take a break, come back, look at the Predators' schedule for the season that starts tomorrow night with opening night at Bridgestone Arena. We'll be getting ready for warm-ups in about 24 hours from right now as the Predators host the Columbus Blue Jackets tomorrow night for opening night in Smashville. This is the Predators season preview show with Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, and I'm Max Hers here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back to the Predators season preview show on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
We got the Svechkov theme song. Does Svetch know about Destiny's Child?
Probably not.
Come on.
But he's ready to pay
hip.
his bills.
If this takes off, just know that it originated here. That's all I'm saying.
We'll give you full marks.
Thank
Promise.
you. I love full marks.
Svechkov just always gives us something new every day.
Yes.
It all has
the
a
white
quick
stick.
life.
What's the story about the white stick?
Well, so those of you who have seen a game this year, if you saw a preseason game or if you're getting ready to watch the first game on TV, you'll see it tomorrow. Fedor Svechkov's sticks this season are very distinct. They are all white and they have holographic decals on them.
Yes.
And he told Ann Kimmel of Penalty Box Radio, who you will hear on this station in 2 hours, Wednesday nights at 8. She asked him why he got white sticks this season. And he said, I felt it in my soul. that he needed a white stick.
Good enough for me.
That's our Svetch. Yeah.
He will never cease to say interesting things.
And his English continues to get better.
Yes.
Not that he was really having much trouble expressing himself last season, but just get ready for even more if he plays well.
You always have to be prepared for something out of the ordinary that he's going to say. There are certain players, you know exactly what you're going to get. They're going to give you we got to get the puck behind the D. We got to work hard. You know, if you ask something specific, they'll give you a specific answer, but it's more predictable. Svechkov is one of the most unpredictable, in a good way, interviews that the Predators have had recently.
In my experience, the Russians are always good for that sort of thing. And the Russians that I've covered in my time, you know, some of them, like most hockey players, they might not say too much, but the ones that I've covered, the ones I've been around, they're always a riot. So Svechkov fits right in.
He's a fan favorite for a reason. Absolutely. Yeah. And he's sticking with number 40, by the way. That was just kind of a number that was assigned to him, and he's had it in Nashville and Milwaukee, and he's like, you know what? People bought the jersey. People know I'm 40. It's sticking with 40.
You could have a pretty good trivia contest of original numbers that some of the better Predators had before they switched to their number that we all remember them by.
Colton Sisson's number 84.
There's a good one there. Yeah. I think Ryan Ellis was 40-something, 48, I think. I think Matthias Ekholm was 42, if I'm not mistaken. Congratulations to Ekholm for another contract he just signed today.
He was indeed 42 before he was 14.
Yeah. Shea Weber, I think, had a different number than 6 when he first came up.
He had 48.
He also had 48. So Ellis and Weber, both 48?
I suppose so.
You haven't looked up Ellis to verify?
Well, if you just give me a minute. By the way, Ryan Ellis recently traded too.
Not to play.
Not to play. He was 49.
49.
Before he was
That's
4.
right.
Then he went to 94 during his brief time with the Flyers.
All right, well, time to read some more numbers at you as we look at the Predators' schedule, which begins tomorrow night on home ice against the Blue Jackets. Opening night, 7 o'clock at Bridgestone Arena. 2-game homestand to start the season. Saturday is the first Saturday night in Smashville. It is the Ice Age rivalry against the recently renamed Utah Mammoth.
I like that.
Saturday night at 7.
My son likes the movie Ice Age.
Yeah.
Well,
all 5 of them. How many are there?
Beats me.
I think there are at least 3.
They all run together as far as I'm concerned.
So 2-game homestand to start the season. Hope to see you in Smashville tomorrow night or Saturday night. And then as Hal Gill told us last segment, the bag chucker in chief, the godfather of Chuck, he's always worried about when are we getting on the road? When are the boys getting together? And that first road trip is next week. 4 games in Canada in 6 days. 3 spots we only go to once a year, Willie, and we're going to see them early. In Ottawa, next Monday afternoon. That is Canadian Thanksgiving. Sens home opener at noon Central on Monday. You'll hear it on 102.5 The Game all day. You'll watch it on TV as usual. It is Columbus Day, so it is a holiday for a lot of people in the U.S. as well. But Canadian Thanksgiving, Monday afternoon in Ottawa. Next Tuesday night, back-to-back in Toronto. Leafs will also be on a back-to-back those days. Next Thursday night in Montreal, and then 2 Saturdays from now in Winnipeg. Those are the first 6 games. 2 at home, 4 on the road, against some pretty tough teams and some teams with high ceilings like the Blue Jackets and the Canadians and the Mammoth, who are not proven but have some major rising potential.
That's I think a very interesting thing that I had not thought of until you just sort of laid them out there, where Columbus, Ottawa, Montreal for sure, and Utah. I think the Leafs are different. The Jets are obviously different at the tail end of that road trip, but 4 teams that have gone through a lot of rebuild. They have been patient. It's taken longer than they wanted it to, but they are all with that nucleus that they have kind of put their cap dollars behind and said, before they've had great success, we're going to roll with you guys. Ottawa got a taste of the playoffs last year. Montreal got a taste of the playoffs last year. Columbus was close. Utah was close, and they're trying to push to that next level. But these are intriguing teams, I think, for the Predators to face early in the season, because those are swing teams, and if you're going to have a rebound, these are the types of teams you have to have some success with. And Nashville was so poor against the Eastern Conference last year. I don't know what it was. They
bad on the road
very,
in
very
general,
bad
too.
Against the East last year. They did much better within the division than they did in the East, and the Central's pretty tough.
For context, the Predators opened last season with 9 of their first 12 games at home. So they played 3 road games between October 10th, which was the season opener, at home against Dallas, through the beginning of November. So a lot of home cooking at the beginning of the season.
Too much.
And yeah, I was about to say,
which was felt at the time.
Yes. I remember Barry Trotz saying that,
Yeah.
Andrew Burnett saying that. I'm sure players said that as well, that, hey, it's nice to be home, but it helps to mix it up a little bit. So the Predators are going to have the opposite this season with 4 of their first 6 games on the road.
Yeah, so those first 2 weeks, getting the big road trip to places that are important to a large portion of the roster and where every game will feel big. Sometimes Ottawa, it's not full. It's their home opener. It's Canadian Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And based on
that game
them,
will be full.
Yo, absolutely.
And then Winnipeg
probably
is a
I'm
Saturday
looking
night.
forward to that because I think that might be the best atmosphere that I've ever seen for a Predators-Senators game in Ottawa. It's not even going to be close.
Right. There are usually some empty seats up there in the suburbs of Ottawa. That won't be the case. But then after that, it is still a lot of home games. 8 of the first 13 games are at home. So it is a lot of home games in the beginning. If that early long road trip can counteract the negatives of being home a lot at the beginning last year, you do have a chance to pick up some points, including that 5-game homestand in week 3, which starts on Tuesday night, October 21st, against the Ducks, who are the worst team of that group that'll come in, and then some big boys come. The Canucks, who are looking for a bounce-back year, the Kings and the Stars on a weekend back-to-back at Bridgestone in the final weekend of October, and then the Lightning to finish it up. So it's a tough schedule early in terms of quality of opponent.
Just to backtrack to something Willie said, the Predators were 9-19-4 last season against the Eastern Conference, including a 4-10-2 record against the Atlantic Division. 3 of the teams on that road trip, Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal, reside in the Atlantic Division.
Clearly, they have to do better than that against the East. I think the consensus still is that the West is deeper than the East.
Definitely.
But these are, I'd look at, you mentioned another team, Anaheim, that's on the docket fairly early here. That's another team that feels like it's time to start winning. They've gone through all of the hardship, and they picked in the top 10 something like 7 or 8 straight years. The days of Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlav and all those teams that played the Predators nose to nose in those great playoff series. Those guys are long gone, and they've gone through some very, very lean times. They want to win this year. Not all of them are going to. And like, who are you going to knock out? But that's the beauty of a parity league where everybody's got the same amount of dollars to spend. There's a lot of room for different pathways. The Predators are no different, but I think we're going to find out a lot about the Predators in this first month.
2 other big notes early on the schedule. 6 of the first 7 Saturday games are at home. 6 Saturdays in Smashville in October and November. Those need to be fortress games at Bridgestone Arena. We need massive crowds at those games, and the Preds need to win those games.
I don't know how you felt. Adam, I don't think you were at the game on Saturday. Max, you were. I thought look, I've been to a lot of those preseason games over the years, especially on an afternoon game where there's a lot of great college football on. I've seen some kind of meh crowd. I thought the crowd on Saturday was fantastic, especially given the fact this is a team coming off of a rough year last year. I thought the fans were awesome. I even thought the early preseason games, the doubleheader ones where it's a long day, and the Titans even played a home game
at the
that
same
day.
time.
I thought the fan enthusiasm level and excitement at the preseason games was at a very, very high level in context with where they're at. So I'm encouraged about what we're going to see from the fans.
So 6 Saturday games at home in October and November, including a couple day games for the family, the first 2 Saturdays in November. And then in mid-November, the Preds will go to Stockholm, Sweden for the Global Series. Predators and Pittsburgh Penguins will play twice in Stockholm on Friday, November 14th. That game will be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Nashville time. then again in Stockholm on Sunday, November 16th at 8 a.m. Nashville time. The Global Series, Predators and Penguins, an early highlight on the schedule, which starts tomorrow with opening night and year 27 as voice of the Preds for Pete Weber, who will join us when we come back on the Predators season preview show, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back to the Predators season preview show on ESPN 102.5 The Game. We are your radio home for Nashville Predators hockey. Wednesday nights are your night for the hockey block. Either Smashville Live or Preds Insiders at 6, the Predators official podcast, and Penalty Box Radio every Wednesday night starting at 6 for 3 hours. And hockey talk all the time.
Gotta love it.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta love it.
We're back with the pregame show tomorrow night at 6. Preds and Blue Jackets opening night at 7. And the voice of the man you will hear on the call with Jay Moore on Preds Radio. The voice of the Preds, Pete Weber, is here. Petey, thanks so much for joining us.
How could I not join you guys tonight with this special show? It's a very special show to get things going for the year while other teams have already begun their schedules. The Predators begin theirs tomorrow against what, for a while, was a traditional divisional rival, the Columbus Blue Jackets, who did make it to town on a plane today, in spite of the problems we've had with air traffic control here in Nashville.
Pete, by the way,
going to make sure of it.
You can remember the day. People who maybe are newer to town, because it's been a long time since Columbus was in the West, but that actually was the case. There was a time, and you can remember this, when the Predators played the Blue Jackets 8 times per season.
And that was just in the regular year. Then we had 2 preseason games.
So they got very familiar with one another during the course of the year. But remember when there was a sentiment, they put it in there to say, let's spice up the division rivalries. And then they, after a while, a couple of years, they're like, this 8's a little too many. But remember Craig Leopold, the owner at the time, he was like, I kind of like playing the Blue Jackets because the Blue Jackets could not beat the Predators at that time.
Well, and they still regret coming into this town. I mean, in Nashville, their all-time record is 6-43-4. So you can kind of understand their viewpoint there.
Wow. Pretty good points percentage right there.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad.
All right, Pete, we're going to talk about you, which I know is not quite what you're here to do, but the 2025 Golden Hall Predators Hall of Fame class going in as a duo, of course. You and Terry Crisp will be going in at the game on November 1st. You guys were surprised by Pekka Rinne. You got fitted for your gold jackets when he delivered the news. Congratulations. We are so excited for you, and it's less than a month away. You and Crispy going into the Golden Hall.
Well, thank you, Max. And I don't know if surprise says it all. I think shocked probably is a better approach to all of that. We were nonplussed, let's put it that way, when Pekka walked up behind us on the set during the gladiator shots and said, "Hey guys, how you doing?" And he was wearing his gold jacket. So then he gave us the news, and yeah, that is something special. And I'm glad that we are going to go in as an entry, as a duo. That's pretty much what we were from the night of the very first opening night against the Florida Panthers. How many years were Terry and I together on the television side or the simulcast side? 15 years. And that was going to be a one and off. Terry was just agreeing to come in as a favor to Jerry Helper, who put us together, to pay off maybe an old debt from the Tampa Bay Lightning days. I'm glad it turned out to be far longer than that.
Pete, do you anticipate having a swear jar on stage during Crispy's induction speech?
Well, I don't know if we can do a live tape delay, but that might be a good idea if we possibly could. I can tell you all sorts of stories about when tape delay did not work, and not just with Terry and me, but in my past. And it's kind of scary when you think about it, really. But no, I think Terry will be fine. The key for Terry is to know which mute button is his and not mine, because there were nights, like one night in Tampa Bay, where he's hitting what he thought was his mute button. It was mine. And what he was saying was actually going out on the air. So that's the scary stuff.
Pete Weber is with us going into the Golden Hall. And Golden Hall came to mind the other day for a different reason for me, Pete. I was getting ready to go over for the preseason finale there, and this clip comes up on randomly on Twitter of Glenn Hall for the Blues on a delayed penalty, skating towards the bench, and the puck came to him, and he makes a pass. And it didn't even mention. Yes. And then all of a sudden I read, and he passes to Terry Crisp for the St. Louis Blues when Crispy was a very young player with the expansion Blues. And Crispy, I got to say, made a brilliant move. It was awesome.
Didn't he ever?
Silky hand.
So shocked, Willie.
Didn't he ever? I mean, he was, and then he was angry in the post-game dressing room in St. Louis because everybody was talking with Glenn Hall about the great pass, not Terry about the great finish.
Yes, he was. I was having a conversation about that with him in the Lexus Lounge before the game, and he said he was at one end of the locker room, and all the reporters were on the other end where Glenn Hall was, and he was shouting, "Who scored the goal? Who scored the goal?" And he said none of the reporters came over to him. They continued to want to talk to Glenn Hall.
At the other end, speaking of that, who was the goaltending coach for Terry Crisp when they won the Stanley Cup in '89? One Glenn Hall.
Yeah, Glenn Hall, for those that are not hockey historians, one of the greatest goalies of all time. And Chris Mason always says this, Pete. I forget what the number is. It's over 500 consecutive starts. And Crispy adds
502.
Yes.
Without a mask.
Without a mask. Now, imagine explaining that to young players now or young kids saying, do you know that hockey goalies didn't used to wear masks? That would be something if I were 8 or 9, I would have a hard time even believing. Like, you're lying. You're joking with me, right?
Yeah.
Hockey goalies didn't used to wear masks.
The thing is, go on to a Google search now and just type in the name Terry Sawchuk, and you will come up with, I think it was a Life magazine photo of Terry, who shows the peril of playing all those years without a mask. He finished his career wearing one for Toronto and Los Angeles, but you could see the stitches on his face that made you think, how in the heck did they even consider doing that?
Pete Weber, the voice of the Predators, is our guest here on the Predators season preview show. Petey, we've been out at practice, calling some preseason games, some fun moments in preseason. What are you looking forward to about this group?
I'm looking forward to seeing how the third line, which really has driven much of the training camp for the Predators, and maybe the terminology is wrong to say third line, but I love Bunting, Howla, and Marchessault, and how they have worked together. It seems almost like they were meant to be there, as if on the mountaintop after they handed the 2 tablets to Moses, or if you believe the version where it was put together by Mel Brooks, the 3 tablets, and Moses dropped one of them, that these guys were foreordained to be put together. They've done a fantastic job. And then Brady Martin, absolutely incredible youngster. And this is the latter day version of Scott Hartnell, making the club out of training camp as an 18-year-old. I mean, I just hope that Brady doesn't do the interview that Scott Hartnell did with us after he scores his first NHL goal.
That's one that probably won't air on any live pregame shows today.
No.
But if you want to hear that, just if you approach Pete somewhere, if you bump into him in Smashville, he can pull it up for you.
It's on my phone.
It was entertaining. It went on over the air when Scott Hartnell was 18. He scored his first goal against the Boston Bruins.
And then when he got on the team bus in Boston afterward, some of his teammates were going, "Hey, could you explain to my kids what you were saying on the air?"
Right. When you guys have your ceremony for the Golden Hall, Pete, will there be a reel of bloopers available?
You know, I should put that together, and I think I will, and I'll just have that one continuous thing on my phone.
Yeah.
And maybe I should put that, maybe I should find a way to monetize that, because that could make me rich beyond any possible reward.
Right. We just have to put the, what do you call it? Parental warning.
Viewer discretion.
Viewer
advised.
That's right.
NC-17.
If as long as people know, it's not NC-17, but it is definitely not PG-13. It's somewhere in between.
No, it's not that. It's not that at all. But, you know, I think working with Crispy all those years, one of the most memorable nights, we were in New Jersey, and Terry is getting set to telestrate a play. And he is just furiously trying to telestrate, and it's not working, until I pointed to him the fact that telestrator was to his right. He was trying to draw plays on the monitor in front of us. So things went much better after that.
Rookie. he figured it out. He figured it out eventually.
He did.
Well, Petey, we can't wait to hear your voice on the call for opening night, year 27 of Preds hockey tomorrow. And we are willing to wait because we have some business and some games to take care of before then. But we are really excited for November 1st when you and Terry Crisp will be this year's Predators Golden Hall class as Preds Hall of Famers. That's going to be an awesome day to celebrate you guys. And We know you will still call the game, and that's more important, but we're going to make sure that is a really important day to celebrate you and Crispy. So congratulations again.
Thank you. Remember the crazy way that we remember things in this league. Who leads the league in goals against average right now? Well, you have to take a Beatles song. She Loves You. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Arthur She Loves is the guy who leads the league with a goals against of ot, as Jethro Bodine would say.
Or as Brother Blutarski would say, 0.0.
Yes.
0. We're going to need a second 0 for Arthur She Loves. All right, Petey, we'll see you at the rink tomorrow. Thanks so much for hanging out.
Looking forward to it, and thank you for having me on tonight.
That is the voice of the Predators, Pete Weber, back on Preds Radio this year. He and Jay Moore will have the call for all the home games. Hal Gill and I will have the call for most of the road games. Pete will be on the road some as well as the season goes on here on Preds Radio. We got one more segment to preview the season here on the Predators season preview show. We are going to catch up on some of your questions that were texted in. Still got time for a few more. You can text us your Preds questions, 615-737-1025. You can text us anything you got talking Preds before opening night tomorrow night at Bridgestone Arena. Predators hosting the Blue Jackets tomorrow night at 7, then the Utah Mammoth Saturday night at 7 for the season opening 2-game homestand in Smashville. Back with more after this to wrap up the Predators season preview show 2025 here on your radio home for Preds hockey, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
How much more comfortable do you think they are this year going into the second season?
They're really comfortable. Willie, you're probably around the rink the most and get to talk to some of these guys. I mean, they're different people. Like if you talk to Stammer will tell you he thought coming to Nashville, the easiest thing would have been the hockey part, just playing the game and all that, and the move and all that would be more difficult. It was the polar opposite last year for him. It was so easy because we've got such a good job in such a friendly city, and our organization takes care of the players as well as we do. All the things regarding the family and the move to the city was almost seamless for him. It was the hockey part that, put him in a little bit of a spin cycle. It was hard for him. He was a legacy player in a city. And what I'm hoping, and we've had these discussions, is Stammer, it was a legacy player and left his stamp in Tampa Bay, and he still got lots of gas in the tank. And what a great statement where we are with a lot of young guys like Stammer and Marchie and Brady to an extent, leave their mark in Nashville, where they go, at the end of their career, they said, man, I had a great career in Tampa Bay, and they'll probably someday maybe put a statue there. Who knows? And then I went to Nashville and I got this young team going, and now they're competing every year for cups, and they get such a great core. And I had a big effect on that. I think that's where those guys are right now. I sure hope they are. And I feel that.
That was Barry Trotz with D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick. I'm Vingen. That's Donick. He's Max Hers.
I'm not D-Mace, if anybody was wondering. My catch radius is slightly smaller.
But as we wrap up the Predators season preview show, and the Predators open the regular season tomorrow night at home against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, right here on 102.5 The Game. I thought those comments from Barry Trotz were interesting because the Predators, as I said at the beginning of the show, they have an uphill climb to get back into the playoff mix after missing the playoffs by 28 points last season. And I expect the team to bounce back because, quite frankly, they can't be as bad as they were last season. I am adamant about that. But if they are going to be competitive, if they are going to be, I believe the term that Barry Trotz used last season to describe what he hoped the Predators would be, is a threat to make the playoffs, a threat to get in there and make some noise. If the Predators are going to be a threat in the Western Conference this season, a lot of it hinges on the players who came in to much fanfare 1 year ago: Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Brady Shea. And I don't know if the skeptical is the right word, but I'm not. I'm trying to figure out exactly how much more those players can give. Steven Stamkos had, by goals per game last season, the second worst season of his soon-to-be Hall of Fame career. Jonathan Marchessault saw his goal total, sliced directly in half, if I'm not mistaken, from 42 to 21. Brady Shea had a rough go of it as he adjusted from, as Hal described, that unique Carolina defensive system to the Predators' defensive system. The hope is for the Predators that now all of those players, they've got their bearings. They've been in Nashville for a year. Maybe some of those hard feelings from their departures from their previous cities have subsided, that they will get the best version of those players. But those players they're older players. They're not necessarily in their prime anymore. So, Willie, when you look at those three players in particular, and we can start with Steven Stamkos because Barry Trotz was addressing Steven Stamkos in that clip. What are realistic expectations for those three celebrated free agents from a year ago?
Well, I think you heard a theme that Barry Trotz hit and Andrew Brunette hit, is the buy-in of help us bring along these young guys that we think can be good. Like, for this team to be good, as we've talked about before, they need both. They have to have bounce back years from those three guys. They've got to have bounce back years from the three guys that everything has been built around the three linchpins of the franchise, Saros, Forsberg, Yossi. But then if you take a look at how they're being utilized, Marchessault has got his own line. Forsberg and O'Reilly have got their own line. Stamkos is on a different line, right? And all of them have elements of youth that are sprinkled in there. So it's that blend. And that's what I heard Andrew Brunette say and Barry Trotz. They've talked about this. And Andrew Brunette has had talks with those players about that. So, Max, let me ask you about Marchessault, because there was so much fanfare last year. Marchessault not shy to say, hey, I don't like how this is going. You know, I'm frustrated. We have to adjust, all of that. You had an interesting for the podcast. I know you had a very good in-depth conversation about what year one was like for him and where he is now. What did you get out of that?
Yeah, I think all three of these guys are motivated in a way that you could not just drop in to them artificially by last season. It takes a season like last season to get these guys to the point where they are right now, where they feel like they were embarrassed by it. They need to play significantly better and prove that they are what they were before last year and not what they were last year. And I think the biggest thing for Marchessault is I think his heart was out of it from the beginning last year, changing teams, going from a place where he had won so much and was such a fit and was so happy. And his mom passed away right at the beginning of the season last year. And
unexpectedly, right?
Yeah, and he was very public down the stretch of the season that really affected him. And I think it was obvious to us, Willie, those of us who travel with the team, who see every shift, that the things that he said at the end of last season, we probably could have come up with similar quotes for him the way it went. And I think the bounce back opportunity is not only necessitated by how bad last year went, but also I think it's a motivation that you could not create any other way.
That's interesting perspective. And I believe Marchessault had a comment during training camp, because remember, he had the most dissected quote at the end of season news conferences about Andrew Brunette and perhaps making some adjustments. And Marchessault said during training camp, again, if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to recall this off the top of my head, that he wants Brunette to hold him more accountable this season. And I think that is a good thing. I think Brunette is going to be more comfortable as he knows these players now, holding them accountable in the ways that are best for them, because not every player can be held accountable the same way.
Yeah.
Some players respond to having their ice time taken away. Some players don't respond to having their ice time taken away. Some players respond by having hard conversations. Some players don't respond by having hard conversations. So I think that will be good, because one of the issues I had with the Predators early last season, and Marchessault was sort of in my radar, was I thought that Brunette was not holding him accountable for not playing well. But I think all of these players may be more on the same page with their coach this season.
Well, I think if Marchessault can't give what he needs, playing on a line that has been so good in camp with two veterans who he fits with well, and Michael Bunting and Eric Haula, and Marchessault and Haula are good buddies. They played together for 2 years on the Golden Knights. If that line can't get Marchessault to play the way he needs to play, then I think it is time to start exploring those things.
And we saw that line a lot in the preseason games. For what it's worth, and it is preseason, I've seen lines look good, and then 2 weeks into the season, they're gone. They never played together again. But Marchessault in particular looks like he's got a little more energy. He's got more feistiness.
Yeah.
He's an undrafted free agent who had to work past that, with that label, to become the player he's become. He didn't play like that, a hungry overachiever, undersized, showing you, hey, I've got grit, I got feistiness. Haula, I always remember John Hines called him a junkyard dog. He's got that, right? Bunting, no question, is going to be right in the middle of it. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But the three of them together, that's an interesting mix. I'm hoping that brings out the best in Marchessault, because last year he didn't find himself until it was way too late, right?
We'll find out tomorrow. Opening night, Predators and Blue Jackets, tomorrow night at 7 in Smashville. Thanks so much for listening to the Predators season preview show. A brand new episode of the Predators official podcast is next, with defenseman Brady Shea joining the show.